But welcome to today's presentation. My name is Fabian Buckley. I am the HSSE Director for WIB Construction and Safety, and I'm also the CEO of HSE Connection Points. Everybody, welcome again to today's session, conducting effective risk assessments. As I've mentioned last week, was a little bit of a boo-boo on Tuesday where I wanted to record the session and it didn't record. So this is a redo of last week Tuesday, but there's going to be a lot of difference in this one with the AI component that I'm going to be demonstrating this morning to see how we can further improve by utilizing these AI technologies to assist us in improving our risk assessment method statements and various other documentation quality as well. So as I've mentioned, my name's Fabian Buckley. I'm the HSSE Director for WIB Construction and Safety, also HSE Head for Power China, and I'm also CEO of HSE Connection Points. So please, if you have any questions, please park them for me, and so that we don't lose the flow. We said from 10 to 11, but if we have to go a little bit over, we can. It's fine, we'll do so. But yeah, as I said, I want to try and keep to the times as much as possible. I don't want to keep people up for their Saturdays, spending their time with their families. Okay, so let's jump straight in. Conducting effective risk assessment. So there's the right way versus the wrong way. A practical guide for health and safety officers, supervisors, and workplace risk assessors, presented by myself. So we'll be going through various aspects of this. So what the OSH Act requires. The Occupational Health and Safety Act mandates a structured sequential approach to workplace risk management. Assessors must work through, sorry, I just want to put this to the side because it's right in my presentation here. Assessors must work through these distinct steps in order every time a risk assessment is conducted. Okay, so identify hazards. That's the first and foremost activity. We need to identify hazards, spot every source of potential harm in the workplace, assess risks. We need to evaluate the likelihood and the severity of harm for each hazard, and then we need to apply controls, implement appropriate measures to eliminate or reduce risks. Never starts with controls. Jumping to solutions before identifying hazards is the single most common and dangerous mistake in risk assessments. Now, when we conduct risk assessments, what is one of the first aspects that we need to have in place for us to conduct that risk assessment? And sorry, my sessions are very interactive. I like to ask questions. It's not a monologue. I try and also keep it a bit of a dialogue on various slides. So anybody, please feel free.
Method statement.
Thank you, Sipo. Is that yourself, Sipo, that raised your hand? I can't see who's speaking.
Yes, Fabian, that was me.
Okay, thanks, sir. Yes, so you are 100% correct. So the first and foremost aspect that we need, sorry, can somebody mute themselves, please? You're getting a background noise. Hello? Guys, can you please mute yourselves? Thank you. Okay, sorry, man. I was saying, thanks, Ipo. You're 100% correct. The first and foremost aspect that we need, or document that we need to assist us when we are conducting a risk assessment, is a method statement. Now, the best way for us to conduct a method statement as HSE professionals is that we need to sit around the table together with the construction manager, the supervisor executing the work. Also, sometimes the artisans that are also performing the activities. So you create a committee of sorts, engineering, where engineering is required, and also quality control. Okay, very important that we also have them as part of the process. So we sit around the table, we agree on what is the activity that needs to be done, we understand the scope of work. We look at the area where the activity needs to be done. And then from that, we together compile the method statement. That is looking at the methodology, the people that's required to execute the work, the tools, as well as the material that needs to be utilized for that activity to be done, and the plants and machinery if required. All right. So once that is done, we then sit together, we compile the method statement in a sequential manner, and then from that, we are completed with the method statement, and then it is our responsibility from HSC, it's normally done by the risk assessor in under construction regulation section 9. They are the person that would facilitate the risk assessment. Again, it is not an individual's responsibility. So whichever companies you're working for, where you currently are being tasked to draft risk assessments by yourselves, please, you can inform them that that is not correct. A risk assessment is a team effort, as is the method statement, and it should be done that way. Okay. I know that a lot of you guys have pressure from your companies that force you safety guys to do the risk assessments on your own, but you need to also speak up and say, sorry guys, this is actually the wrong way of how we're conducting our risk assessments. And for various reasons. One aspect you got to obviously consider is that we are not subject matter experts on the various activities. We are safety professionals in most cases. We understand the requirements as far as safety is concerned, but when it comes to the technical aspects, executing the work is definitely not our forte. So what we advise them on is that we need to sit together as a team, as we did with the committee with the method statement. We create a committee, and you as the safety professional or the risk assessor, you would facilitate the process with the team. My advice is always to extract the information from the method statement for various activities that are being conducted. Add that into your left-hand column for your activities on your risk assessment template. And then from that, you would then sit together and start deriving your hazards, your risks, and then your risk evaluations from your inherent risk and your residual risk after your controls. So once the controls are in place, which we'll be running through shortly, you will then be able to facilitate the process in a much more professional manner. Also, from a legal aspect as well, guys, if the Department of Employment and Labor comes to site, we had a case last year where there was a prohibition notice issued on one incident that happened. It was a Section 24 incident on one of the projects, and the inspector basically said that the risk assessment was not done sufficient enough or well enough from his perspective, and he issued a Section 24. A prohibition notice for the Section 24. Apologies. Okay, so has anyone seen this before? The hazard wheel? Besides those that joined the training on Tuesday, anyone else saw this hazard wheel before? Okay, no hands up, no one's speaking. Sorry?
No, it's my first time.
First time, okay, that's good. Okay, so this is the hazard wheel. So the hazard wheel was made famous, or let's say it was more popularized, let's say, by Chevron. They were one of the first organizations that started this hazard wheel, and it's a very, very good tool to use as safety professionals because it gives you a proper guidance as to what a hazard actually is. So hazard wheel. So the hazards exist across many categories. We use the wheel below as a prompt to ensure no hazard type is overlooked during our assessments. Every segment represents a family of risks that must be systematically considered on any work site. Okay, so when we look at the hazard wheel, we see that it starts, if we have to look at the top from 12 o'clock, moving onwards, it is now mechanical, electrical, pressure, temperature, chemical, biological, radiation, sound, gravity, and motion. Now, if I can just quickly ask, if somebody can quickly give me an example of a mechanical hazard. This is just a quick one example, and we move to the next one. A good example of a mechanical hazard.
Any rotating part.
Thank you, sir. 100%. Any rotating part is an example of a mechanical hazard. An electrical hazard. Tembinkosi.
Yes, Lani, I wanted to comment on the mechanical one. It's being entangled through rotating machinery, as he just explained. On the electrical part, I think being choked or being working on the live line.
Okay, Temikosi, I'm glad that you mentioned it, Tembo, because I want you to think about this now. You mentioned about getting shocked. Is being shocked a hazard or is it a risk?
It is a risk.
It is a risk, eh? Thank you. So being shocked or electrocuted is the risk. That is the outcome of the hazard itself. Okay. So what
Yes.
is an example of an electrical hazard, guys? Quick one. Anyone?
Hello, Fabian.
Low hanging cable.
Go ahead. Sorry?
Hello, Molly.
A naked
Overhead
cable.
power line.
Yes, a power line, a low hanging power line, or an exposed electrical cable, or a cable that is laying in water that has a possible pinhole in it that can create an electrical hazard. Okay. What about pressure?
Any pressurized
Pressure
cylinder
hazard.
like oxygen, acetylene during welding.
Perfect. So yes, pressurized gas, pressurized water, pressurized fluid, hydraulics, all of that would be pressurized, okay? So anything that has a pressure, it doesn't have to only be a cylinder. I know the picture depicts a cylinder, but it can be anything that is under pressure. All right, what about temperature, guys? What about temperature?
Very hot weather or very cold weather.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Just mute yourself, please. We're getting some bad feedback from your end. Yeah, so your temperature extremes is both hot and cold. Okay, not only hot. A lot of people misinterpret this as only heat, but extreme cold is also a hazard as well. All right, chemical. This is an easy one. Anyone should jump out with any one of them? Any examples of chemical hazards?
Mainly filling with petrol and diesel.
Petrol, diesel, thank you. That's all examples of chemical hazards. What about biological?
COVID.
COVID, thank you. COVID, hantavirus, Ebola, E.
TB.
coli. Sorry?
Can I add something on chemical hazard?
Yes, you may.
It's oil spillage.
Oil spillages, yes, that would be both an environmental impact as well as possibly impact for workers as well. Slip, trip, and fall from that, and obviously being affected by the chemical itself, depending on what the chemical is. So we gave some good examples as well on the biological. Another one to remember, guys, is also blood. Blood and any human excrement is also seen as a biological hazard. That's why you'll see at the hospitals, etc., they have those yellow bags that has the biohazardous substances inside there. So if it's blood or sputum or anything like that, it would fall under biological. Okay, because we don't know if the person has TB or any other sicknesses as well. Then we have radiation. Any examples of radiation?
During welding, there's
Cross line.
radiation risk.
100%. So you have your UV rays, you have your gamma rays, you have your microwaves, you have your various other aspects of radiation. So mostly we find this around X-raying activities, whether it's X-raying in hospitals or medical facilities, as well as on your industrial sites where we do X-rays as well with your iridiums or your cobalts and those things, your isotope source, right? And then we have sound. This is a simple one. Anything above 85 decibels, but it doesn't necessarily have to be above 85 decibels. You can have decibels under 85, which can still be, because it's used for a long period, can also create a problem based on your time-weighted average as well. Sipo, I see your hand is up. Anything you want to add?
Yes, Fabian, on radiation, I also wanted to add that machine that tests compaction, mostly used by road lab guys on cars working
Yes.
on civils, is also
100%.
radiation.
100%. That's your Troxler that we use from the road labs, etc., for compaction testing. That also has a radioactive isotope. Very small, but it still is present and 100% correct. Sound, as I've mentioned already, anything normally above 85 decibels. But you can have, as I said, under 85 decibels, but for a long period of time. Kellen, are you on? Are you still adding people? I see there's still people joining, so it just took me out of the presentation there for a second. All right, and then we have gravity. All right, so gravity is both people falling and also equipment or material, etc., that's falling. And then last one we have is motion. Anyone want to take up a hazard on motion?
Vibration.
Okay, vibration, yes, vibration will also fall under motion. And also you're looking at your plants and machinery, any moving plants and machinery will all form part of our motion. So when we look at atmospheric aspects like confined space, working in confined spaces, etc., that would also have an atmospheric hazard, okay? Meaning that the environment that we're working in is either enriched or it is oxygen deficient, or it has other agents in that environment as well. Okay, so that's just something else that you're not getting in the wheel, but it's something to also consider within your hazardous environments. So I'll share the hazard wheel on the WIB group. If you're not part of the group, we'll send a link after this training. Kellen will just add it on the group, on the chat, and you can click on there and you can join the group where I'll share all of these wheels. There's some good information that I'm going to be sharing also on some of the prompts as well that I'm going to be sharing with the AI prompts that we'll be going through. All right. So why most risk assessments fail, ladies and gentlemen? Despite good intentions, the majority of risk assessments produced in the field contain a fundamental error that undermines the entire purpose and leaves workers exposed to real harm. The core problem: assessors routinely identify missing controls as if they were hazards. This reverses the logic of the entire process. When you list no barricading as a hazard, you are describing an absent solution, not the actual source of harm. Okay, so we all remember when we consider, when we think about hazards, we must always think about it in a form of an energy. So as an energy source, what does it have a power or a potential to do? When we think about pressurized vessel, pressurized cylinder, I shared one in the group the other day of a small cylinder that was that the cap came off and the cylinder started flying all over the show. That gentleman was trying to retrieve it. I don't know if any of you watched that one that I shared, but that was a perfect example of a pressurized cylinder and what that thing can do. So the energy inside that has a force to cause injury and even death. I must find there's a video I watched a couple of years back with a cylinder that was actually, it flew into a building and it flew like literally like a rocket. If you looked at it, you would have thought it was a missile that struck that building, but it was actually a pressurized cylinder cap broke off, and that projectile flew in, and it had such immense pressure and force. So those are the things we think about when we think about hazards. What is this thing? How can this thing affect me? How can it affect a worker? If we look at a snake is a perfect example. A snake is a perfect example. If it's a venomous snake, it is now a high hazard. So the risk of it causing a fatality increases depending on the specific snake it is. Is there antivenoms, etc.? That's part of your control measures. The problem is what we have been so accustomed to do as safety professionals, and I'm including myself in this. Please don't think that I am excusing myself from this. We've all fallen into this bad habit through the years. But the intention of this training is to unlearn the bad habits that we've been taught through the years, and the easy way out, the simple way, the lazy way, I'll call it, where we'll add a lack of a control measure as the hazard. It's easy to say, okay, person can fall from heights because it's an exposed area, and then we can put in a control measure, ensure that there's proper barricading in place or solid barricading is in place. So that's the concern. That's what I'm basically highlighting today in the session to show us how we've become so accustomed to these bad habits, okay, and how we can unlearn them as well. So the consequence is a risk assessment built on false hazards provides a false sense of security. Controls get installed, the paperwork looks complete, but the underlying hazard was never properly named, analyzed, or managed. Incidents follow. Incidents are not prevented, legal compliance is compromised, and workers remain at risk. I mentioned the prohibition notice that was issued for Section 24, and this was a result of it. One of the points that was raised from the inspector was no proper risk assessment and method statement were in place, or no proper risk assessments were in place for the activity. Even though there was proper risk assessments, there was risk assessments in place, there was method statements in place, there were safe work procedures in place, but not for that specific activity. And when he looked at the risk assessment himself, from his perspective, he identified gaps, which in most cases we would identify after an incident happens, because now you're obviously looking at things in hindsight to understand, okay, where did we actually go wrong? But the truth of the matter is the risk assessment could have been done a lot better. And that's why I'm also sharing that as a learning as well to everyone. Okay, so the wrong way, another example, Kellen, please add Mr. Kuma. This is one of the most common errors seen in the field. Review the example below and identify what has gone wrong before the next slide reveals the answer. So the task is excavation work on a construction site. That is the task. The hazard is no barricading, listed as the identified hazard. So the risk is person falls into excavation, and the control is install barricading around the excavation perimeter. Spot the error is the obvious one. No barricading is a missing control. It is not a hazard. The assessor has described the absence of a solution, skipping the hazard identification step entirely. Okay, so now we're going to see, why is it wrong? Understanding why this approach fails is essential to breaking the habit. The logic is straightforward once you apply a simple test. Barricading is a control. Barricading does not create harm. It prevents it. A control is something humans put in place to reduce risk. Listing its absence as a hazard confuses the protective measure with the source of danger. The excavation still exists. Removing the barricading and the hazard, the open excavation remains unchanged. The real source of harm is the excavation itself, not the absence of the barrier around it. The simple test, ask yourself, if I remove this control, does the source of harm disappear? If no, then what you removed was a control, not the hazard. Okay? So let's go into the correct example. Still the same excavation. When the hazard is correctly identified, the entire risk assessment improves in quality, accuracy, and effectiveness. So the hazard is now open excavation, an unguarded void in the ground that presents a fall risk to any person working nearby. If we have to go back to the hazard wheel, which one would we choose for this specific hazard? And that's why I like to use the hazard wheel when conducting risk assessments. Which one would we utilize for this?
That would be gravity, Fabian.
Sorry? Gravity.
Yes, correct.
Perfect. Thanks, Rani. Okay, somebody just please, Sipo, I think it's yours that's making bad sound when you're putting your mic on there, brother. Just switch off your mic for us there, please. Okay.
I was trying.
The mic is off. The mic is off, Fabian.
So somebody's mic is giving some bad feedback there. I don't know which one is it. Sorry. So yeah, when you're looking at it from an open excavation and we considered gravity, thanks for those that spoke and said gravity. That is the correct answer. Because there is obviously a potential of a person falling in or something being dropped onto somebody below it in that excavation itself. Okay. So when we look at risk, we say fall into excavation resulting in serious injury or fatality from the fall itself or from collapse of the excavation walls. So now we're adding in different variables. Now we're looking at potential collapse of the excavation walls. That risk in itself is something that needs to be covered separately. Each hazard must be addressed separately. Each risk must be addressed separately. And the various control measures can be addressed jointly, but in most cases you want to try and you want to control those individually as to what you are putting your control measures in place for. So in this case, the controls here are barricading, signage, edge protection, adequate lighting, supervision, and rescue procedures. There would also obviously be access and egress, considering edge protection is covered, where there'll be a prevention of something being kicked into the excavation, for an example. And then we also look at aspects like your sloping, your shoring, your stepping, whatever process would be utilized for that. Okay. So that would cover us for us understanding what the actual hazard is, what the actual risk is, and what the actual controls should be for that specific activity. Okay, because let's look at it in this way. Let's just do a quick example. If we say no barricading in place is the hazard, the obvious for that is ensure proper barricading is in place. Okay, that's going to be the rectification of what we're considering as the hazard. But then is there anything else applicable to that aspect? Is there anything else that you can relate it to? Or is it just the fact that there's no barricading in place, so now we need to put barricading in place? Whereas if we're looking at the actual hazard as example has been presented, I'm sharing that you're looking at the actual hazard being the open pit or the open, unprotected, unguarded void in the ground. That is the concern. And that's not going to change. And then from that, we're going to have multiple hazards, multiple risks that we're going to derive from that specific hazard itself. Okay. So let's move on. Another good example that I used, that I'll share with you guys if you haven't read it, was the example of the face shield. Now, a good example is no face shield. This is a common one that everyone likes to use. Hazard, no PPE. What's the control? Ensure all the workers have their correct PPE. That's a common one you find in risk assessments. So it says here, the assessor has again listed the absence of a protective measure as the hazard. This tells us nothing about the actual source of harm and provides no meaningful basis for risk analysis or controlled selection. Why this fails? A face shield is PPE, the last line of defense in the hierarchy of controls. Its absence is a gap in protection, not a source of harm. The question to ask is, what is actually being generated during grinding that could cause injury? So this is a perfect example. So if we look at this gentleman now that's working here, right? He's grinding. Can everyone see? He's grinding a piece of metal, it looks like, on a table. So let's just look at some examples of hazards that we can pick up from just this picture alone. Can you give me a couple of hazards that we can look at?
Grinding sparks.
Grinding sparks, thank you. So the grinding sparks themselves are flying particles and abrasive debris. So from that flying sparks, what can it create? What can it cause?
Fire.
Can cause fire. Thank you. What else? As per the picture, it stipulates it can also cause eye injuries. Okay. So we can have particles embedded in the eye, etc. We can see that the gentleman is wearing his double eye protection, as well as something else as well. So what else can we pick up from this? What other hazards can we pick up from this activity? Just looking at this picture.
When injuries.
Noise.
Noise, which can
Noise,
cause.
thank you.
Noise. Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
which can cause?
Which can cause the hearing loss.
Noise-induced hearing loss. Okay, obviously over a long period of time, it won't be something that will happen immediately, but there will definitely be some effect on severe or long-term usage of that. And then obviously we have your short-term exposure limit, depending on how high that decibels are from that grinder. And then obviously we have the long-term effect of noise-induced hearing loss. Thank you very much for that. Anything else that one can pick up from this picture before we move on?
Even poor handling of power tool, which is grinder. It seems like it didn't hold on the right position.
Correct. He's not holding it on the handle, right? We know that the grinders normally have the handle on the side, and he can hold the grinder properly. Also a very good point. If you look on the ground, you'll see that there's some tripping hazards potentially on the floor as well. So those can also be identified. Okay. Thanks, Timber. Go ahead.
Thank you, Miss.
Sorry?
I'm not sure, but I see the grinder. The grinder isn't got.
Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
Timber.
Yes,
No, go ahead,
I'm
go
saying
ahead.
the grinder is not fitted with a handle. There's no handle there, according to what I see.
Yeah, 100%, yes. Yeah. So yeah, we mentioned it that there was no handle, but thanks for that. But I think that covers us just as an example to show us that we are identifying what are the actual hazards themselves. Okay. So
In the machine guard, it's not there.
the machine guard also looks like it's not on there. Yeah, 100% correct. That's why the sparks are flying all over the show, not flying in one direction. Okay. So yeah, experienced artisans and safety people will see that also very quickly, 100%. Okay, so this is again, I'm not going to go into the same examples. I'm going to share this. As I said, if you're part of the WIB Academy WhatsApp group, I'll share this on the Academy group so that you have this information. The group is almost full as well, guys. So we got maybe about 70 spaces for about 70 more people, and then the group is going to be packed. All right. So then the next one we got is wrong example for working at heights. This is a good one that I just want us to cover because I think it's important as well. So when we look at the correct example for working at heights, we still look at it as the hazardous working at heights, open and unprotected edges, gravity acting on persons and objects, and unstable working surfaces. Okay, so yeah, we're looking at the hazard of working at heights in an unprotected edges or unprotected area. There's gravity that is acting on persons, which is linked to working at heights. And then we also have unstable working surfaces. All right, so those are the hazards that's been listed. And then when we look at the risk, it's to fall from height resulting in serious injury or fatality, falling objects, striking workers at lower levels. And then our controls would be full body harness with double lanyard, certified anchor points, edge protection, guardrails, toe boards, exclusion zones below, and rescue plan. Now, quick one before we move on. Did they follow the hierarchy of controls when we were conducting this risk assessment?
I don't think so, Fabian, no.
No.
Thank you. They didn't. Because why? They went straight for PPE. So they put PPE first on the controls, and then they went for certified anchor points, edge protection, guardrails, toe boards, exclusion zones below, and rescue plan. So if we have to look at it from a hierarchy of control, we would have possibly gone for certified anchor points. We would have looked at edge protection, the guardrails, the toe boards, as our physical barrier, which would be our engineering control, and then your exclusion zones below. If we prevented people from completely coming in that area at all, meaning it was fenced off, there were security guards below, etc., we could have taken that even as we've eliminated the potential hazard of something falling onto an employee below. Okay, so we can take that right up to a possible elimination of anybody entering into that area from a hierarchy of control perspective. And then from a rescue plan and the rest of them, your toolbox talks, your DSCIs, your permits, that's all obviously part of our administrative controls, which includes our signages as well. Okay. So think like this. Every risk assessment should follow a single consistent thought process. Train your mind to move through these 4 steps in sequence for every task you assess. This mental model prevents the most common errors: our hazard, our risk, our consequence, our control. Starting at hazard and working forward to control ensures that every protective measure you apply is anchored to a real, identified source of harm, making your assessment legally sound and operationally effective. Okay. So common mistakes, as we mentioned, common controls listed as hazards. Some of the most common ones that you find in industry is no PPE. Next one is poor housekeeping. Next one is no permit. And next one is no supervision. Okay, these are also commonly used and listed as hazards. I am not saying do not put poor housekeeping as an aspect of a concern. But your control measure can always be ensure suitable housekeeping after the activity is being conducted or while the work is being done. The same thing with supervision. Listing no supervision as your hazard and then putting a control as ensure full-time supervision is not correct. Having supervision there as a control measure is what you want to add in your control measure. Okay. So for the safe and effective and execution of the work that's being conducted, you need to have a supervisor present for activities, especially for high-risk activities. In general, the supervisor should be within the area at least during the activities that are being conducted, whether it's the direct supervisor or foreman or charge hand or somebody else, but there needs to be somebody that is overseeing those activities, especially as I mentioned for high-risk activities. Okay. So legal framework under Construction Regulations 2014, we all know that the 2014 regulations has been amended to, either it'll be the 2025, most probably, 2026, excuse me, but there's a chance it might even be delayed to 2027, okay, depending on how long the department takes to sort out their issues. So the risk assessments in South Africa construction environments are not merely best practice, they are a legal obligation. Understanding the regulatory basis strengthens compliance and professional accountability. Applicable legislation, OSH Act 85 of 1993, which is the overarching occupational health and safety legislation that establishes the duty of care for all employers. Construction Regulations 2014 Regulation 9, as most of us would be well aware of, specifically requires construction contractors to conduct risk assessments and implement safe work procedures before work commences. So what Regulation 9 demands is identify all hazards associated with construction work, assess the risks arising from those hazards, implement appropriate control measures, record and review the risk assessment regularly, ensure assessments are conducted by a competent person. Now, I know I like to pause on this point of competent person because many of us think that we've conducted a one-day HIRA at one of the training institutions and that constitutes us being a competent person. Ladies and gentlemen, that does not. Okay, that just proves that we've done a training on a specific topic or subject, which in many cases is done very half-heartedly from the trainer or facilitator in most cases, and doesn't really hold weight. So you obviously need to be a seasoned individual, conduct your various trainings, study, but practice is what makes perfect. Okay, so the more you do the risk assessments, even if you are working for a company and you're not required to perform risk assessments, ask your manager if you can be part of the team when you're drafting up risk assessments. Tell them that you would like to gain more experience on conducting risk assessments. If they don't want to assist you in that regard, sit and do your own risk assessments. Okay. Go online, watch videos if you have to. There's some of our e-learning training we have is also how to conduct a proper risk assessment. You can conduct the training through the WRB e-learning platform, through our Thinkific platform that we use, where you can conduct your training as well at your own time, on your own leisure. That's one example, but there's many others. So what I'm going back to is practice, but practice doing it right. Practice unlearning the nonsense that we've been taught through the years and go back and learn and do it right. Exercise for yourself is go in on Monday and ask your manager to share a couple of risk assessments with you. Make a copy of them, at least one or two of the ones that you're currently working with on site, and start highlighting all the areas where they've identified controls, lack of controls as hazards. Highlight those, okay? Pull them out or extract them and show them to your manager and say, these are not hazards. These are lack of controls. We are conflating things. We are mixing up things. It's the same with our mix up of hazards and risks. That's another famous one. That's also a pandemic within the industry. And it's a systemic problem as well, where you find it all over the world. I've worked in various countries all over the world, even including Europe. And I can tell you something now, this problem is a systemic issue in every country. It's happening all over. So we need to, as the professionals of today, of this day and age, we're going to say enough is enough. We're going to fix this issue between us and rectify the poor quality risk assessments that are being compiled in the industry today. Okay. So I know I went on a small rant there, but forgive me for my passion in this topic, because I feel it's really something that needs to be fixed drastically. So hierarchy of controls. Once hazards are correctly identified, controls must be selected in order of effectiveness. The hierarchy below guides that decision. Always attempt the most effective controls first before defaulting to our famous PPE as the first measure. So something that I advise people to do when you're drafting up your risk assessment is write on your control section of your risk assessment, write your first E. Your first E standing for elimination, write it in there. Indicate, okay? From an elimination perspective, we are focusing first to physically remove that hazard from that activity. Next, you write your S. Put your S there. That's now the substitution component. We say, okay, we want to be replacing something that produces a hazard. How are we going to substitute it? We're going to use a different chemical, which is not so hazardous to individuals or to the environment. So we're using an environmentally friendly chemical rather than utilizing the one that's required on the criteria from the client side. But you can request a concession and ask them, listen, we got this a different chemical that we'd like to propose. It's much more user-friendly. It's not harmful to the workers, and also it will not harm the environment. So we've substituted that specific chemical. Next, we got our engineering controls, where we would isolate people from the hazards itself. So we look at a second E, and then we go into our administrative controls, which is our A. That's looking now at our permits, our DSTIs, our signages, toolbox talks, plan jobs, observations, all of that jazz would fall under our administrative controls. And last but not least, we have protect the workers. When it comes to training as well, ladies and gentlemen, it also forms part of your administrative controls. You see some hierarchy of controls nowadays. They've even included training as a separate control that they add at the bottom. But training in itself can be a, or is a, and falls under an administrative control. Okay, so as I said, a practical exercise is going to be for you guys to please look at your risk assessments, your current ones that you're working on within your organizations. If you're not working at the moment and you would like a sample of a few risk assessments, just ask in a group. I'll share them to you guys, and you can go through those and you can identify very quickly the specific areas or gaps that you're going to find. All right, so the golden rule is if removing the control leaves the source of harm, it was never the hazard. The single test resolves every ambiguous situation in hazard identification. Apply it every time you are unsure whether something is a hazard or a control. Remove the barricading, the excavation remains. Why? Because the excavation is the hazard. Remove the harness, the height remains. The height is the hazard. The gravity is the hazard. Remove the face shield, the flying particles remain. The particles are the hazard. The control manages the hazard. It does not define it. Okay, so key takeaways from this morning session as we jump into the AI part of the training now is effective risk assessment protects lives, ensures legal compliance, and create workplaces where hazards are genuinely understood and managed. Leave today with these three principles fixed firmly in your mind. Hazards create risks. A hazard is any source of potential harm, a physical condition, substance, or energy that exists independently of what controls are in place. Identify it first always. Controls reduce risk. Controls are the measures we apply to eliminate or minimize risk. They are the response to a hazard, not the hazard itself. Select them using the hierarchy of controls. All right. So again, very commonly made mistake is people mixing up what is a hazard, what is a risk. You find it in many risk assessments. They put what is a hazard at one place, it's a hazard, they put it as a risk, and vice versa. Never confuse the two. Listing a missing control as a hazard produces a flawed assessment that fails workers, fails audits, and fails the law. Use the golden rule to keep your thinking clear every time. Okay, so that's our presentation done for now. And now we're going to go into some of the fun stuff, and then I'll open it up to questions. Okay, so I mostly use ChatGPT. I'm not here to sell ChatGPT to anybody. I've been using it from the beginning. I'm considering moving away to Claude. Yeah, let me see how that goes. I'll tell you guys which was my preferred option out of the two. So when we go into ChatGPT, so I myself, I have the paid version, and I'll advise everyone that can afford that $20 a month to do that. As I'm saying, depending on most of them now are all charging around $20. So pay your $20. It's a very, very good investment in your career. And the reason for that is obviously the non-paid versions for various reasons. One of it being that you have limited credits or questions or prompts that you can ask your ChatGPTs. or your Claudes or your Geminis, whatever you're using. And another important factor is the fact that most of these are not up to date. So if you do not have the current one which are up to date, you will find that your information that you're getting is not always accurate as well. So something important to understand. So before I jump into the few examples, can anyone share with me if they are using any of the platforms at the moment to help them with their activities? Anyone? Anyone? Don't be shy. As I
Yes,
said, I'm
Fabian.
proud to say I do use
I'm currently
AI.
using Copilot and trying with Gemini and Claude.
Perfect, perfect. And how's your experience with it?
Well, the more I use it, the more I find I say to myself, it's becoming an issue where you can't use them anymore.
You can't not use them, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, yes, you cannot use it.
Yeah, that is a bit of a challenge. It becomes very you become very dependent on it for a lot of things. I mean, I use my ChatGPT. I use my $20. I think I'm spending $150 for it. Yeah, it's amazing tools. So before I jump into this, and I was actually attacked by somebody in the group. And I actually shared one post that I saw from LinkedIn that somebody had posted that there was a kind of a conference that the people had gotten together around the table on this topics of improving HSE through AI as well. And I think we I'm obviously I'm 45 this year, so I'm sharing my age so that you can understand that I'm fitting between the younger generation and the older generation. And I think a lot of the older generation are more susceptible to this, where they don't want to find themselves learning about technology and improving. And I'm one of those that my wife and my children will tell you, I try to be very tech savvy. I don't want to be left behind when it comes to technology. If there's something new in the industry, I want to learn about it and I want to see how it can help me develop. At the moment now, I'm self-taught. I'm developing my own applications and I'm making powerful applications that are real game changers. And one example that I want to share with you guys is that, or one reason rather than not so much an example, is when I've worked with companies have contacted me in the past to assist them with developing certain applications. And one frustration from my part was that I always wanted it to do so much more than what the limitations were from the companies that I was working with, helping them to develop these apps. And when you are not a safety professional, HSE professional, you don't understand the real gripes and concerns that the people are faced with. So what we tend to do is they are the tech experts and they have the know-how on how to develop the apps, but they don't know what we are looking for and the results that we're looking for and the outputs that we're looking for. And that's something that I think I got a leg up on a lot of the guys now with the apps that I'm developing, because I understand the challenges in the industry and I understand what we need to help us as safety professionals to make our lives so much easier. Okay, and obviously more effective and better at doing what we're doing. So just a quick example again of one of the risk assessments that we have, and I want to just also share a few examples of what people also tend to do wrong. So when it comes to listing of work activities, yeah, it's been listed as HSE management of contractors, and list of hazard is unprepared and inexperienced contractors. Now, again, we start adding all these unnecessary aspects: incompetent personnel, no inspection done by safety officials. These, ladies and gentlemen, are very good examples of demonstrating what are not hazards. Okay, they are a lack of a control. So once we've put our various controls in place, we will then ensure that our hazards that we would have in this regards would be properly documented. And remember, when we're looking at it from a risk perspective, we're not only looking at things from a safety risk, We look at things from a risk management perspective. We look at things from speculative risk, where there's positives or negative aspects that one can achieve from the risks. As a speculative risk, a good example is like gambling. Okay, it can be you can win or you can lose. Most cases, most people lose, but there are some people that win from gambling. So that's a good example of speculative risk. But we have various other aspects when we deal with risk from a project management perspective. Remember, I said to you guys that WIB Construction and Safety Academy is not just for safety professionals, it's for project managers, construction managers as well. And we want to open it up to them as well so that they can also learn from us and we can learn from them. Working with senior management the past couple of months, especially, has opened my eyes up a lot to understand the different dynamics that they deal with compared to us as the HSE professionals, and it gives you a good understanding as to what these people are going through. We look at our departments, our health, safety, environmental, some of our security departments as well, and we think that those are the most critical aspects on a project. And you must understand that these people are looking at every department for them to understand and learn and grow from that. Okay, from us. So another common mistake that people like to make in their risk assessments as well is changing the consequence when it comes to the residual risk rating. Okay, so once you put your various control measures in place, ladies and gentlemen, if your risk was a fatal potential, if there was a chance that somebody could die, and your consequence in that regards would be seen as a 4, it unfortunately will not change. Your chance of a fatality still happening it might be very low or very unlikely to happen, but the chance if a person is injured in this activity or from the specific hazard themselves, and the risk outcome would still be a fatality. So that would not change. Okay, so just something important to understand. Another important aspect to understand is do not be lazy and group or everything under one rating. Okay, you would have your 3, 4, and your 3, 4 as well that you would have on here for that specific hazard. And then your next one, you would have the same. So you would conduct your own likelihood and consequence rating. And then from that, you would have your various control measures and you would do your own risk rating. Okay, I know it sounds like, sure, it's so much work that needs to be done. But that, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, that is the proper way of us conducting a risk assessment. Okay, there is no quick and easy way out of the process when conducting these activities. All right. So let's go into our AI part of it. Okay. Sorry, I just want to quickly save this baseline and just open it up again. I'll save it to my desktop so it's easy to find. And then I'll show you guys how we're going to do it when it comes to our chat GPTs and the rest of the AIs. Okay, so when we are conducting, sorry, man. Okay, there's it saved. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so I've saved it to my desktop. Now, when we are getting our prompts, this is a very, very important part of this training. I hope everyone can still see my screen. Okay, can everyone still see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Yes, we still can, Fabian.
Okay, thank you. So give me 1 second. I'm almost there. And then I'm going to show you guys some great prompts that I've already put together for you all that will assist you all. I'm going to start off with one example that I like to use. Okay, so this is one. I'm going to share this also in the group. I've got about 9 prompts for you guys that I'll share. It will guide you through the process of getting the best results from your risk assessments. Now, from creating risk assessments and method statements, ladies and gentlemen, you can also give it some great prompts to ensure that you can get the similar results in your quality of your risk assessments and method statements also. But as I said, you do not take the easy way out now by going and saying, okay, I don't need to have a team together, because the minute something goes wrong, ladies and gentlemen, guess who's going to be the person that's going to have to answer for that risk assessment if something is missing? It's going to be you. Okay, so I add my prompt. So my prompt reading here, if I read it out to you guys, is: as a chartered occupational health and safety professional, I'm an ISO 45001 lead auditor, construction HSE manager, a risk engineer, and legal compliance auditor with more than 30 years in international experience. Review the attached risk assessment and method statement as if it is being submitted for approval on a major construction, mining, oil and gas, or industrial project. Critically assess the documents against ISO 45001, ISO 31000 risk management, applicable legislation in my country. Obviously, you can specify industry best practice, client specification, contractor management requirements, identify any missing hazards, missing controls, incorrect controls, weak wording, non-compliant statements, poor sequencing, unsafe work methods, missing legal appointments, and the rest of the items you would list. Okay, so then afterwards, I've also asked it to score the documents out of 100, graded from an A to an F, explain every weakness, rewrite weak sections, recommend additional controls, recommend better engineering controls before administrative controls, recommend opportunities to eliminate hazards entirely, and highlights anything that could cause a client rejection. So this is now covering you for everything. Okay, now I'm speaking to ChatGPT like I'm this chartered member of AOSH, or I am what they call him now, a new fellow member or something. Okay, and then we go into attaching our files. As I said, for those that don't have the paid version, you some of your versions will not allow you to add in any documents. On the paid versions, I think you can add up to 10 items. I'm not sure on the others, but I know with ChatGPT, I think it's still 10. So there's my document that's uploading now. So just give it a few minutes. I think this is the longest part of the process, is waiting for your document to upload while you go make yourself a cup of coffee or tea. Okay, I know we're a bit over the time, but I think this is quite important. I see Robert's hand is up. Go ahead, Robert.
Fabian, I just want to, earlier on you said that you at your age using AI. I just want, for those that are sitting maybe in this, my age is currently 64. So tech savvy, I'm learning at this age that you can't write it off. You've got to start using it.
You have to. Thanks for that. Sorry, sir, what's your name?
Robert.
Oh, Robert, is it you that's your hand was up? Okay. No, thanks, Robert. You're 100% correct. I mean, if we think back, guys, 20 years ago, the quality of cell phones that we had, you look at the quality of cell phones we have today alone tells you and shows you how quickly technology is moving. And if you were one that had a Nokia 2110 or whatever the famous ones were at the time, Today, those are outdated. Those are dinosaurs. You cannot use them. If you do, it's just for mostly for calls and SMS, you know, and MMS, I think, if you're lucky. So that shows us if we want to stay the redundant. And I hate to say this, but it's a fact. If we want to stay redundant and continue being dinosaurs, then that's where we're going to stay. We're going to become outdated, and we will be not any use for our teams or our projects. And they're just going to find younger people that understand how to use the technology and adapt to it. And those people are the ones that are going to excel the most. I know it's already given us an assessment now based on this, so let's jump in. But just some quick information. If you listen to the likes of Elon Musk and them, these guys are talking in the next 5 to 10 years, majority of people will not be working because of AI and what's going to happen in society. So I know we can't trust it completely, but we can also not ignore them, because we know that these are the guys that are in the know when it comes to a lot of these things. So what I've done is I have uploaded the baseline risk assessment that was conducted. You can see it's given me an overall assessment, overall score of 84 out of 100. It's graded as a B. Okay, just taking into consideration this was also drafted in 1st of August 2014. All right, completeness is 9 out of 10. Hazard identification is 8 out of 10. Risk assessment methodology is 8 out of 10. Legal compliance currently is 6 out of 10. And you would have identified as well that there were some changes. It was still giving the old construction regulation references at the time, because you remember that construction regulations only came out, even though it was promulgated in 2014, we only started really using it from 2015. Okay. And then you would see aspects of legal ISO 45001 alignments, also taking into consideration this was during OSHA's 18001 time. ISO 31000 alignments is not bad, 8 out of 10. Engineering controls, 7 out of 10. Human factors are 6 out of 10. Environmental management is 7 out of 10. Emergency preparedness, 8 out of 10. Contractor management, it's given a good 10 out of 10. And document quality was 10 out of 10. So it's given me now the strengths. The document demonstrates excellent practice in several areas. Comprehensive contractor management process, good emphasis on competence verification, strong permit to work philosophy, good inclusion of medical fitness, good hierarchy between inherent and risk, extensive reference to inspections and audits, strong documentation requirements, good management accountability, excellent baseline approach rather than task-only assessment, very good emphasis on supervision. Okay, and then major weaknesses that it's picked up is in your ISO 45 structure, the document follows OSHA's 18001. Look at that. I didn't even need to tell it that, and it went straight away that it's picked up that it was following an OSHA's 18001 terminology and not ISO 45001 structure. Okay, so modern clients expect alignment with leadership, worker participation, context, interested parties, risk and opportunities, consultation, operational planning, continual improvement. This alone may trigger review. Okay? Human factors that are missing. Modern risk assessment should consider fatigue, stress, mental health, complacency, production pressure, distraction, shift work, experience levels, language barriers, decision-making, and safety culture. So if we look at this as fatigue, is fatigue a hazard or a risk?
Fatigue, it's a risk.
Fatigue, do we think it's a risk or do we think it's a hazard?
The hazard.
Fatigue is
It's a hazard, yes.
Hazard.
It's a
Yes,
hazard.
having somebody that's, thank you, sirs. Thank you, gentlemen. So having somebody working in a fatigued mindset or state is a hazard to himself or herself, and a hazard to the others around him. They say that a tired person is worse on the road than a drunk person, because a drunk person, depending on how drunk, but somebody that's had a couple of drinks is more alert and more attentive because they are aware that they are under the influence. Whereas a fatigued person is drowsy and you cannot fight sleep. When sleep sets in, you are done and dusted. Okay, same with stress, same with mental health. These are all hazards. A mental health issue is a hazard to the employee. Okay. Then we're looking at SIMOPS. So SIMOPS, as we know, are simultaneous operations, very limited consideration. It should include multiple contractors, shared lifting zones, simultaneous commissioning, electrical energization, heavy lifting, excavations, vehicle interactions, conflicting permits. Then I looked at weather risk, very limited, should include lightning, heat stress, UV exposure, high wind, rain, flooding, dust storms, cold stress. Okay, so weather risks are also there. Lightning is a hazard. Heat stress is a hazard. UV exposure is a hazard. That's your high heat, okay, or temperature. Then you have high wind, also under pressure. Okay, rain. You have wet conditions. You have people possibly getting sick, slippery conditions created from it. Then you have flooding, dust storms, etc. So this is just an example, ladies and gentlemen. Look at environmental risks of how much more it's gone into it. So say you need to go deeper. All right. When it comes to ergonomics, this is missing. Add, include, consider. Look at your manual handling aspects. Look at repetitive tasks. Look at awkward posture. Look at tool vibration, musculoskeletal disorders. All of these aspects. Then we're going deeper now, because remember we are HSE, yeah? So the H component of it is missing. We have no proper indication of noise surveys, dust monitoring, silica exposure, welding fumes, diesel particulates. All right, and we know most of of your fuel sources are carcinogens. They have your benzenes, your benzols, your PCBs, etc. Then you got your heat stress monitoring, your illumination surveys, as well as vibration. And then our critical controls, which for me is extremely important. On any project, you must ensure your critical control aspects are considered and that you are focusing primarily on your critical controls. From a high, medium, and low, you want to focus on your highs, your critical controls, which will cover you for your highs and your mediums. All right. So then you're looking at critical risk controls that should identify that and are covered separately is isolation verified for certain activities, rescue equipment available, competent operator, lifting exclusion zone, gas testing, fall arrest anchor, rescue team, and emergency communication. And in our emergency planning, we're going into more information on that. And then it's telling us as well, what are the missing controls, missing hazards, excuse me. So we have battery energy storage, we have arc flash, we have human machine interfacing, we have dropped objects. So all of this, ladies and gentlemen, or what was missed in that specific baseline risk assessment. Okay, so looking at this now, can we see the benefit of us utilizing AI when we are conducting our risk assessments and method statements? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we
Okay,
still
so
hear.
thanks.
We
I'm
do
asking
see-
the question, can we see the benefit now from this one example alone on how beneficial AI can be for us as health and safety and environmental professionals in the industry? Can we see from just this one example on how helpful this tool can be to help us, one, to compile better method statements and risk assessments, and also to review proper quality method statements and risk assessments. Can we see the benefits of this?
Yes.
It's very beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay, so from everyone that's present here this morning, how many people have not utilized AI to help them to compile their documentation, their risk assessments, method statements, and to review their documentation? How many people can say that they have not used it before, and today they can say that I will definitely start utilizing this tool because I can see how much better and how much more powerful it is, and how it can help us to improve our quality of our documentation, our risk assessments. We can have a show of hands in the lobby or in the amongst everyone. I see quite a few hands going up. Thank you. I think I'll also raise my hand because I'm definitely one of those that agrees. So I'll open it up now to any questions. Anyone wants to ask any questions? I'm willing to assist you. You can lower your hands now, please. And then we'll open it up to any questions. Okay, somebody's mic is unmuted. Okay, if you want to unmute, then if you want to, you can speak. I see Sipo's hand is up and Amukelani. Please go ahead with your question. And
I don't have a
Sipo's
question,
next
sir.
is two
Was the
Sipos.
question.
Go ahead.
I don't have a
Go ahead,
question.
Sipo. Oh, you don't have a question. Okay, no problem. Anyone else that has any questions, please feel free. Okay, I see Prudence, your hand is up. And Timber, please go ahead with your question.
Oh, hi everyone. I wanted to ask, how do we join the group? I heard you mention that maybe only 70 people can manage to join. So I wanted to ask the link on how to join the group on WhatsApp.
Okay, Kellen, are you online? Kellen? Okay, I will
He
add.
shared the link already. It's on the chat box.
Oh, it's on the chat. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks. All right, any other questions relating to today's topic?
Hello, Fabian and
When it comes to drafting up method statements, risk assessments, safe work procedures, whatever you're using it for, you do not need to declare that you are using an AI for that purpose. Okay, so there's no plagiarism involved in it. It's basically a tool that you're using. And it's important to understand that we do not rely primarily on the tool to compile the documents for us, and without reviewing the stuff and submitting it off to the client or to the department or wherever that you are submitting it to. You need to make sure that you're reviewing your documents before. And why I say to the department, obviously, if you're applying for a permit and you're an agent, you want to make sure as well that you're reviewing your documentation properly before you submitting it through to the client or to the department. And, you know, a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of AI and utilizing it much more prevalently within their lives. And my suggestion is to everyone is use it, but don't abuse it. Use it, go through your material, read through what has been shared so that you can ensure that the quality when it comes out is of a good quality. As I say, it's going to help you a lot. If you have to consider it like this, in my opinion, it's like flying an aeroplane with a pilot. There is autopilot on the plane, which you can use as your AI to help you to fly for most of your journey, but you still need to have a pilot behind the wheel, ensuring that AI is driving or flying the plane in the right direction and in the right way, but you as a pilot are still ultimately responsible for those people's lives that are in stake when you need to fly that plane and land that plane. So do not rely heavily only on autopilot. You as the pilot need to make sure that you're flying your plane properly. So that's just my analogy that I'm using with regards to AI. It's a very powerful tool. My suggestion to everyone is invest your $20 a month in utilizing it. If you are going to use it often. Use it as much as you possibly can. That's going to help you tremendously to compile your method statements, your risk assessments, various documentation, as well as when you are reviewing documents as well. Pull it into the app as I've demonstrated now. Give it the proper prompts. The prompts I'm going to share on the WhatsApp group for you guys as well, that you can utilize these prompts. Just copy them and paste them into your various AI tool, and the rest will be done by the AI for you. Okay, anybody else quickly? I'll take one more question before I close. I know we went almost a half an hour over. So anyone else? Sipo, your hand is still up. Do you have a question, or is it a legacy hand? Okay, I see Amokulani. You have your hand up again. You can go ahead.
No, I just want to say thank you for these lessons. It will help us a lot because I was not aware about all this. So thank you so much.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll close the session now. And thank you. If you have any further questions, feel free to WhatsApp me or ask the questions on the group. And I'm always available to share my little bit of knowledge and experience with everyone. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And yeah, enjoy the time with your families. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much,
Bye.
Mr. Fabian.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Lani.
No problem, Timba. Short, huh? Right.
Okay. Helpful. It's helpful. Hey, we help you, eh? We are tired of being trapping there. Thank you, Lani. Thank you.
Short, my bro.